Well, hey, welcome to the Great Old Ones channel. Here I talk about gaming in general and role-playing games specifically. Tonight we'll be going back again with first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and by request we'll be talking about character classes that come out of the Dragon magazine. There were a couple of them that were requested specifically. We'll cover those, and then I'll go over some of my favorites, and Doom Swords will be back with me to talk about some of his. And hopefully we will entertain you this evening with our nonsense yet again. So, as soon as he is ready, I'll bring him on. Hey, there he is. Hey, good evening, my friend. How are you?
Hey, how you doing?
All right, we're doing great. Oh, your mic sounds blasting, or is it my volume?
Well,
I
I
must.
cranked my gain down and my volume, so I
I
don't
had
know.
my I
Uh,
have my TV up a little loud. I'm getting old and deaf, I guess. Maybe that's part of it. Sirens and rotor blades, all that other fun stuff. That's okay. The roar of the fire.
yeah,
Yeah,
it sounded all right to the audience because Streamlab or Streamyard has its own. I can turn it down in there too.
no, I think it's pretty good. It's not hot.
Right, so it's not clipping or whatever.
Oh yeah, it's
All
good.
right, I put it down a little bit
I
anyway.
mean, not that they wanted to listen to us, but
But yeah, yeah.
I've been playing around with these things and I found how to do this. Excellent. A little crawl
Oh,
across the
nice.
bottom of the street. Ooh, that Discord. That Discord on there is for the Iron Wind Discord. That is the Discord that Gonzalo and I are doing for Rollmaster. So if Rollmaster interests you, hop in on that Discord and ping him with it, and he'll give you approval to get on in there. We can talk about Rollmaster and stuff too. I just realized that by not editing it when I got here. But I need to do this too, because there he is. He's my. Please like and subscribe to Doom Swords as well. Yeah, and if you like this kind of stuff, hit the bell icon, all that good stuff. Show us the love in that way. We've got some comments already. Dungeon Master D, Joe Kaufman, of course, our friendly neighborhood pest is here once again. Uh, Onyxian X. Yeah, well, I mean, he even said he's a pest, so I'm just reiterating his comments. Yeah. Who else we got? Dungeon Master D, of course, one of our favorites. Dr.
Doc.
John Smith as well, the doctor of hard knocks over there, coming in here to give us some knocks. I'm assuming. So let's see what do we got. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't do this. There we go. Appropriate sounds to do. All right. Again, like I said, we were going to talk about Dragon Magazine classes, and it's one of those things. Is as much as you and I both like to stick as close to the book as we possibly can, there are just some things to like about some of the additional classes that came with the Dragon Magazine. And like they've expressly stated, nothing in the Dragon Magazine is official unless it came directly from Gary or was otherwise written to do so. But these are definitely some useful classes. Um, So without further ado, we'll launch into those. Let me add this to the stage and you and I can make comments of it. Why isn't this monk smiling? Well, because, I don't know, we're looking at the back of a guy with a sword. I guess the guy with his head cocked to the side, that's why he's not smiling, because he's falling down. One of the best parts about this particular article is it's Philip Myers here, who wrote this, goes into his explanation as to why he did not like the monk. And I agree with a lot of his points. Um, they seem a little weak on the front end, weak on hit points on the front end. Yeah, they can stun, but still, there's some requirement stuff that go with it. They can't use their dexterity for armor class to start with armor class 10. So they seem a little weak at the beginning. I mean, even though you got two four-sided dice for hit points, if you roll two and you don't have any con bonus, well, then the vicious chicken of Bristol is going to do you in on your first adventure out. So I like reading through this, his rationale for what's increases and stuff. One of the things he also didn't like was the monk's progression. So that was tweaked a little bit for his, so that the monk class didn't get didn't require the competitions with other monks until you actually made a name level like other classes got, like fighter got lord, and magic user got wizard, that kind of thing. And they pushed it out a little bit. Joe Kaufman says he's way behind in the stream. No worries, Joe Kaufman. We are way behind in our own stream as well. Yeah,
I'm behind in the stream of life.
yeah. I'm swimming against the current most days. I got to stop. Yeah. So here's page one on that. You can see the progression and stuff in there. It's pretty cool. Um, I like that. There's one, like a couple paragraphs for the end of this page. It says the idea of a character class of martial artists is undeniably a good one, and the monks deserve a place in the AD&D system. But now then, can monks be made competitive and, if possible, more interesting? I believe this is it. So, for my games, if you're playing in one of my games, you don't roll up the player's handbook monk. You roll up this one to play in my games because I like this one. I had my brother was running a first edition game, and I had, hey, let me run this monk, and he said, sure, go ahead. And so I got him to let me play this particular version in his game as well. Here we go. Displace the stream with anger and vengeance. I am sorry, the water god is really tough to fight. Yeah. All right, let's go to the next page on here. Some of the things. Now, so he reordered some of those abilities and stuff in there, the special abilities. He moved around a little bit. Like, for example, the ability to feign death as a present monk ability, D, is first in his list, and you get it right off as well. You notice at first level, your effective armor class is 6, and it begins to progress from there. All right. Your movement starts off at 15 inches, which is a little faster than other characters, which makes a whole lot of sense for somebody who's wearing basically uh, a robe or a gi. If you here we go. Veer transcends editions. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Um, I, as
So
much as
quick.
possible, all my monks I name Veer. Um, Veer is it goes back to Hindu. It's a Hindu word for, um, if I remember correctly, fast fighter, unseen kind of thing. So it's all tied into. It kind of works with the thematic of it. Since the original Buddhists were actually Hindu and not really, as I understand it, not really Chinese or anything. They just picked up on it and ran with it. So that's why I use Hindu words for naming my monks. Okay,
So
let's see what else we got. So some of these abilities are great. The way they reorder them kind of makes a little bit more sense, and the player gets to use some of the fun stuff a little earlier on. Open hand attacks per round. You start getting 3 every 2 at 4th level, which is great. Considering you're not really carrying anything in either hand, why can't you punch twice, right? Open hand damage progresses pretty fairly quickly as well. And I believe you were about ready to say something, and I cut you off.
No, no worries. I was basically going to say that because I think it's what 6th level or something. Did they normally have AC 6?
Yeah, right.
And
Because you
and
start at
being
10.
right, and being restricted like that, and the inability to wear armor and all that stuff makes the guy suck pretty badly. To be honest with you, I think this is much more equitable to the other classes, right, or
Right. He's a
comparable, or
little more heroic at the start. Yeah. And he's
mhm.
the only class that sucks worse in armor class at low level is a magic user. And well, that
Right.
kind of makes sense. That's not their job. That they don't fight. For a martial class to have terrible defense at the beginning, it's makes them kind of weak to begin with. Yeah. And like Joe Kaufman says here, no dex bonus either. You don't get any dex bonus for anything like that. You don't. Um, None of that stuff adds in for you. Really restricted, and the ability scores required to get it kind of makes like, why is this guy such a tough class to get? And he's not nearly as strong as you would like early on. See, but as man, it's been a long time since I've seen 3 every 2 attacks. So I forgot about that. Yeah, it's a little more work on the dungeon master side, but that's okay. It's manageable. Yeah. Might want to explain what that means and how that works. Okay, yes, exactly. What 3 open hand attacks per round means 3 every 2. is on the first round you get one swing, and on the second round you get two, and then on the third round you get one swing, and on the fourth round you get two. So you can make those attacks, and it flip flops like that all the way through the fight. That's what they mean by 3 every 2 for open-handed attacks per round. Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
so
and
I
it's
mean,
it's
Bill
similar
Kaufman
with
pretty much
fighter.
nailed it down right here. 2 attacks every other round. He said it in fewer words than I did. Yeah,
Right, and fighter subclasses get that fighter,
yeah,
paladin, ranger. Yeah, at
but
7th level,
7th level
and
for
the two
fighter, 8th level for
attacks.
ranger. Yeah,
Yeah, and the two attacks in the second round are split up, right? So typically they'll be first and last, unless you've got another character
hmm
that gets multiple attacks, and then there's a whole set of rules in the DMG for how that staggers.
Now here's a good question. Now, is that against one enemy and resets as you take on another foe, or is it independent? That would be up to the game master ruling. There's no guidance on that. My opinion is that's what you do. 3 every 2. If you switch attacks and you get 2 attacks next round on a different foe, well, that's a different foe. It's um, kind of smooths out over the course of the combat. That's the way I play it. Yeah.
Yeah, I consider them all. It's really the same attack routine, and I typically don't allow a character to split or his attack routines among multiple opponents. So, like we looked at the troll before, and the troll's allowed to split. It specifically is
It
indicated
says,
that the
yeah,
troll, yeah, he has the special ability of being able to split his attack routine. There are some creatures that I would allow. I mean, obviously, a dragon or something that's gigantic isn't gonna claw, bite, wing, tail, whatever. Some little guy, right?
he's
It's
swinging at
kind of
everything.
like
Yeah.
Sauron in in the beginning of Lord of the Rings. It's knocking out everybody.
Well, he's rather
But yeah,
large.
characters I make them stick.
Yeah. That makes sense too, because that's your attack routine, and your attack routine against one of goes against one opponent, unless it's otherwise specified. And I haven't read anywhere in any of the books where it specifies multiple attacks over multiple targets for characters. Yeah.
Right. And if you look at it logically, right, the 3 every 2, you get that first attack against the guy you're fighting, and then the next round you've managed to maneuver the combat in such a way that he's at a disadvantage, so that affords you two attacks against that individual, right? Because you've been in combat with that individual for a couple of rounds, and you've used your excellence at arms
hmm
to turn the tide of the combat in your favor. That's just the way I look at it.
Sure. And the monk being is trained to move faster. I mean, look at his movement rate, 15, right? With an effective armor class of 6, he's dodging and stuff constantly. And so his ability, he's built on speed, not on brute force. Let's see. Note on quasi psionic monk abilities. Now they added a little caveat in here because you got to be human to play a monk. Um, that if you do get psionics as part of it, it's treated a little bit separately, and then you just use. If you do get psionics, the only psionics you do get are those that match the powers as they're explained in here. You don't get any other disciplines other than what you see in here if you're a psionic monk. Right. Um, but I thought it was a really, really good rewrite, and especially reordering of the special abilities kind of helped the lower level monks get some fun stuff early on. All right, and there he is. Now that chain with that drawing on those nunchaku is a little long. That segment's a little long in there, but yeah, it's a pretty cool drawing. Yeah. Now, on the previous page, it says here where they got their upper level advancement options. Here's one of them. You don't necessarily have to have a combat with everything. He gives some ideas for the game master, saying, "Hey, there's the master dragons. There's 3% chance that there's an opening that you can actually go in and basically apply for the opening if you've got sufficient experience levels to get there, as opposed to having to fight the other master dragon." So they're building in some options in here of something other than trial by combat to move up, which can be a pain in the butt for characters, because if you lose that fight, you lose all the XP that you got up to that point and had to start over again, and that's a lot of XP to build back up towards that level.
You know, and it's interesting too. I never really looked at it this way, but as it goes up in level, the percentages grow. I assume that's probably a function of like old age, right? Because by the time you're level 21 Grandmaster of Flowers, you know you've got the 10% chance of vacancy, whereas the younger guys maybe have less of a chance of vacancy. You know, because they're not dying of old age.
Yeah. Ooh, and one thing I forgot to mention, I'll kick it back a couple of other pages. Where is it at here? Nope, on the other page. Six-sided dice for accumulated hit points, as opposed to D4. So you're along the lines of a thief or well, early clerics were D6s, but you're more along the lines of a thief as far as hit points and stuff go. But you start with 2d6. You're technically a two-hit die monster to start with, starting out. So you've got a chance of being pretty tough at the beginning, even though you don't have a whole lot of other powers and stuff to go with it. Yeah, and oh, here we go. Mentioned here with Joe Kaufman, right? He gets 5 attacks every 4 rounds at low. What is he looking at? For
Yeah, well, he's looking at PHP.
Coming out of the player's handbook, right? Yeah, a little bit of a difference. Right, 5 attacks every 4 rounds. That's not a whole lot of extra. You get 1 extra attack in the middle in there somewhere, right? Whereas at 4th level here, you're a lot more combat effective as far as that goes. And some guy said Doom Swords says this monk is actually halfway worthwhile. Yeah, I like this one. This is why I like to use this one in my game as opposed to the other one. I don't think it's overpowered at all. He does have some of the same other restrictions on equipment that he can carry, magic items that he can use and stuff. So he's limited when a lot of that goes in. But some of his abilities make up for having that lack. Dungeon Master D. 5 out of 4 is kind of like having a few pennies. Well, at one time, a few pennies was something. Not anymore. Yeah. So some options, some rationale for rule changes. In this article, he actually goes in and explains why he made these adjustments, why he made these changes. So if you're sitting on the fence of whether or not you like it or not, find this in September 81. This is Dragon 53. You can find. I'm not advocating piracy or anything of that sort of thing, but you might be able to find this article somewhere on the internet somehow or another that you can read and compare it, read through all of this stuff for yourself if you think you might like to use it in your game as opposed to the one that's already in the book. When Oriental Adventures came out, their suggestion was pull the monk completely out of Dungeons and Dragons and just go with monks and Oriental Adventures. But I agree with this author's standpoint that the monk has a place in fantasy literature. I mean, it wasn't unusual to find in medieval societies, find somebody from far off place in your town here or there. They weren't common, they were pretty rare, but it was possible. And your treasure hoards that they're finding buried in England and stuff all over the place. They found gemstones and stuff that are not found anywhere near Northern Europe, but actually have been traded through the lines all the way up. The Vikings adventured far. They were on their way down towards Jerusalem, headed in that direction in the 500s and 600s, as opposed to when the Crusades happened in the 1100s. So there was a lot of moving around. It wasn't as isolated as you might think. So it does make sense.
And a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff was sort of inspired by popular culture at the time. So you really don't have to look farther back than like Kung Fu, right? Where you've got a monk in the Old West or whatever. It fits with D&D and AD&D and all that. And from my perspective, perfectly well.
Got a question here. Can you pin a comment with a list of the issues you're covering tonight? I guess I'm not sure how I would do that. I've never done anything like that.
I haven't either, but I was looking, and
I
you
can go
can
back in when we're done with
leave
the
a
stream. I can
comment.
go back in and edit
Right.
the header and put all that stuff in. When the stream's done, I'll go back in and edit the guide and put all that info in there. That stuff that you type in, the description. There we go. I was looking for a word. I must be having a stroke. I can't find words. Um, yeah, once we're all done with this, I'll go ahead and add all that stuff into the description, all the classes and things. I should have thought ahead and done that. Thanks, um, Dr. John. I'll try and remember to do that sort of thing for all the things we're doing from here on out. If we're covering something specific, um, put it in the description of the stream before I even publish it or anything. That might be a good way of doing things. Much appreciated, Dr. John, for the comment and the idea. See, we wouldn't be doing anything if we didn't get ideas out of you guys. This whole stream came from you, our viewers, who were totally annoyed with us talking about other things. So you wanted us to talk about this. You can make a Western monk work. Who was I was reading, watching something here where he says like Friar Tuck, right? Well, play a monk in Boot Hill. That's the Chinese railroad worker, right? You make a Western monk work to a certain degree, although they weren't martial classes. To if you look at them that way, most of those were, they had that cloistered cleric class that came out in the
Yeah.
Dragon magazine as well, where that's what they were doing. Friar Tuck was more of a he's a cleric, but he used a staff as opposed to a mace or something like that. Yeah. Just
Right. He
my
did mention
opinion, my
above
opinion
too
on it.
that yeah, you would have to change him up. That he fist fights. He has different weapon choices, different level titles, that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing. If you wanted to create something like that, that was not the cloistered cleric, because the cloistered cleric is pretty cool. It's not. We're not covering that here, but maybe someday, right?
Sure, we can do that. We can add that to our list of other things to cover at some time too. Um, and a cleric modification there. He's a wandering, what do they call those, mendicant monks? I believe it
I
was. Where
think
they just
so.
went out into the countryside to preach, and there we go. Joe Kaufman says someday I'll mix Boot Hill and AD&D as per the DMG. It's there. It gives you ideas of how to get it done. I don't know that I would have a whole lot of fun with it, but six guns and sorcery is a popular idea. Let's see. Friars weren't full on clerics; they were drunks. I don't know. That one was, yeah.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
Uh-oh. Somebody's picking on Joe Kaufman already. So, all right. The Jester was another one that I had picked out of there because somebody had asked about the Jester. So I chose that one to look at. And I picked both Jesters that appear in the Dragon magazines. This is the second one, actually, that comes out because this one comes out for AD&D. The first one came out for OD&D. I like they stuck with the same sort of theme. This guy is definitely a jester. He's a jokester, and his whole point is to be as annoying as possible. And some of the way it's written is they, unless absolutely pressed, they're not out there to kill their opponents or something. They're just to upset them, put them off balance, and give advantages to his side by being as annoying as possible, which is perfectly acceptable for that player on your group that says that's what my character would do. This is the class you want that guy playing. Chaotic neutral all the way around. Right? Jesters tend to be smaller than the average height of their race, right? So you can have gnomes, halflings, and but they're limited as far as their level and stuff go, based on the class that's in there. So they did put level restrictions in here based on race for this class, just to be along the same lines of what was already in AD&D 1E. A Kender. No Kender in any of my games. Kender, I would say that's loosely based on a thief, loosely, like a combination of a thief and a leprechaun, constantly practical jokes and so what's the Jester, you know? Yeah. Okay. Ah, why does this wizard's hat have a tassel on it? Well, put it on and see what it does.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, if the DM says try it on and see what it does, throw it away. Hey, there they go. They put in your experience table a six-sided die, you know, because D4 kind of really sucks, and magic users and illusionists are pretty hampered by being it. And the Jester is a little more durable than one of those. He does have some thief abilities. They have Jester's spells that they can cast on this, right? And another thing I like about them is they pick up new languages. Every other level, on the odd numbered levels, they pick up a new language that they can add in addition to what they already got. Because for some of their stuff to work, they have to be speaking the language that the enemy understands. Like they say in here, if they kick off a joke in giant and it puts the giant off balance, the orcs that are with the giant that don't speak giant don't get put off balance. They don't get baned with it or whatever you might want to call. So they have to be able to understand languages and stuff of the enemies that you're trying to curse. On the plus side of it too, there's one of their spells is where it puts a bane on their enemies and a bonus on the friendly players. So if your characters all understand Orcish and you throw an Orcish joke out there to put the orcs off balance, that'll give a plus to your side because they understood the joke that was against the orcs. It's pretty cool. And here it is on the first column, close to the bottom, explains all of that when it's talking about that what I just mentioned. And some of these authors are a little more eloquent than I am explaining these things. But this class looks fun. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to letting a player play one of these in my game because I do have some players that like doing this, and I've got one specific in mind on the Monday night game. Absolute lover of puns, and he would be an excellent jester when it comes to that. They wear simple equipments like leather armor and shields, small shields, things like this, because they would dress it up with their logo and stuff. They wear brightly colored clothing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is visible from far off or anything. That's just the way they go. Some of the magic that they can use is based on what everybody can use or a specific list that's listed in here. They may take into service some hirelings, just like anybody else, but they're henchmen and stuff that come along. There's some specific requirements for their henchmen that comes in. I got a list of magic spells, and they begin on the top of this page, and then we got to go find the next page in the magazine where it gets to the rest of them. But here's a list of the Jester spells. If it's a specific spell that's found in the player's handbook, just like XYZ, it happens exactly that way. Otherwise, theirs are enchantment charm spells. It said the 1% chance that the spell level of spell that it will misfire each time it's used and have no effect, since Jester's minds weren't made for storing spells well. They're slightly insane if you want to look at it that way. Oh, also, the Jester is immune to insanity. That doesn't mean he can't be enchanted with a spell that gives similar effect, but the insanity, there's tables in the Dungeon Master's Guide about how to make your players crazy, but they're immune to that based on how their minds work, which I think is pretty neat. Right? Just like a paladin eventually is immune to disease. Hey, here we got another class that's got a nice bonus to them. What else we got there? Second level, and I think we looks like you must have stuck it right in the middle, or we're missing list of spells. Nope, we went right into witch. Okay.
I think that was all the spells they gave him.
Was it?
And then And
Well,
then they said that
now Jester spell
oh,
letters.
they've got a whole yeah,
Well,
I didn't see anything anywhere the
let's
in the
see.
issue.
Jester's
But
was, let's see, that was page, Dragon 60, page 45, 46, 47, 48, and 49. The rest of them
uh
are on 48 and 49 by the looks of it, yeah. Because
gotcha.
this is page four, that was page 40. Let me see, which page was that one? Magic spells. That is page 48. And then 49. Let's see, can I show it? I might be able to show it. Add image file from my streams folder, desktop, stream, classes. As I say, it was 49. Open. Bam, there we go.
Oh, there they are.
Those are the spells that you get from the other list. D, Druid. M, Magic User. Right. Those are the spells that you can get out of there. Right. And of course, naturally, you have to have Otto's Irresistible Dance. Right. I'll pull that one and we'll go back to this one here. Okay. Just as a way of contrast and comparing, I went back in and dug around for, because when I was looking at this one was Dragon Magazine 3 Jester. So wait a minute, that's a little too early to be 1E. The Jester was came out for original Dungeons and Dragons. On this page, though, they have the Idiot class, and that is something that Doom Swords and I both have sewn up.
Nobody else is allowed to play one of those when we're present.
That's it. That's us right there specifically. We've got that one nailed down. The only problem I don't like about this, look at the scan, the way the scan came in, it hosed that idiot level table.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just make something up, I guess. We'll have to find the original from somewhere along the lines, find a better scan or something. Jesters are amusing little fellows who attempt to defeat their enemies by making them laugh. Usually it is difficult and specialized category to qualify for, since there are three prime requisites: intelligence 15 or better, dexterity 15 or better, and charisma 6 or less. Whoa. I don't have a dump stat. Well, now you don't need one, because if you got a low stat, throw it into charisma, you can be a jester. You've got weapons, and can I zoom out on that one on there? I don't think I can zoom out on that PDF show, but there's a list of weapons that they got. Where's it at here? Their weapons were: a smelly sock can be swung or thrown, stuns for 1 to 4 turns, save versus poison. They can use a dagger. They can use an acid squirting flower, which is 1 to 6 points, range 3 inches. Right, and then they can use a pillow, swung only. You're not allowed to poke somebody with the soft cushion. You have to swing your pillow at them. That was only reserved for the Spanish Inquisition. They're the only ones who are allowed to poke you with soft cushions. Right. Have a jester stick, right, as a morning star. You've got laughing gas balls that are thrown, pies. These are the weapons that you're done with. And when I was looking at it, I said, this is silly, but it looks fun. I guess I got to show it because it's fun. Right. Refer to original Dungeons and Dragons. They come up with a silly class to play. Right. Tomatoes rotten.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's a little, I mean, I never do this, right? But it's a little soapbox that I wanted to jump on just for a brief moment. And it was related to you talking about the eloquence of some of the authors in the AD&D inspired stuff. And then there was a separation. The earliest stuff was a lot of times more D&D and, fanciful and fun and that kind of stuff. But it was still well done. And designed with a purpose. And then when we got into Dragon Magazine and the AD&D stuff, there's just some excellent stuff in there all the way through. And it's complex. It deals with issues and rules mechanics and stuff that people nowadays just don't consider. nearly as much as they did back then. So people who discount Dragon Magazine and don't ever look at it and don't consider any of it to have any merit for their games, I don't have much. I don't have much use for that. There's guaranteed if you guys aren't really familiar with Dragon or haven't looked at it in a long time, there's guaranteed something in there that you can use that will make your game better. It was a different time, and it was
Mhm.
really, you know, peak '80s AD&D.
Yeah, the basically Dungeons and Dragons, the original Dungeons and Dragons. You look at it that way, and then we went to AD&D. It's a framework, right? If you want to add something to that framework, by all means, go ahead. Just take a good hard look at it and make sure it works well with everything else that's in there. Right? That was the whole thing. Wisdom might be a bit low for sixth. Okay, cool. And perfect on here, right? Your jokes. For jokes that are aimed at high intellects, you've got a saving throw. The smarter you are, the harder it is for you to save against that joke. You've also got jokes aimed at those of low intelligence. The lower your intelligence, the harder it is for you to save against that joke. And just the way they've done it, and they describe all their jokes per level. You don't have a spell; it's a joke. You cast jokes, um, and the ultimate joke level 8. I believe there's probably one that's a little level higher than that, and not everybody can know all pieces of the joke at the same time because it's a deadly joke. Yeah. That also comes from. Can we say anything on this channel without Monty Python One Night? Probably not. Yeah. Ventriloquism is in here, same as magic users, but range is 3 inches or 30 feet. Right at your thigh, slapper jokes, right? Your funny face. Your obscenity. I think obscenity probably should have been a low level spell. Just saying. A pun is a low level spell. Always a pun is a low level joke. Always. No matter how elaborate your pun is, it's still a low level joke. And then down at the bottom, a quick pun, additional pun to level the Jester above, right? What does it say on there? No, I can't read it because my thing is in the way. Additional level, additional pun per level of the Jester above. Eighth, no saving throw. Ooh, against quick pun. Aye. Um, Pretty sure Greg would be all over this class. Yeah. All right, and there's some more spells on the other level, right? So compare this guy. He's a little sillier, a little more restricted than what went on with the other Jester. The other Jester, I think, is a little more serious take on it. This was just put together to have fun, and I'm pretty sure that players that played this in the campaign probably had a blast.
Definitely. I mean, this would be a perfect thing for like party D&D, right? Everybody just wants to get together and have fun.
Yeah, why not? The Witch. The Witch is another class that I had picked up and looked at on because it's gone through several iterations of stuff as well. In fact, there's two that we got here. This was the first one to come out in November 1980. Some of the things that I like about this Witch class is they get additional bonus spells like the Cleric does. The Witch gets bonus magic user spells. Like this idea so much that I'm probably going to consider using this in my game. Um, Not just one fourth level spell, but some of these other progressions as well. Make them a little more useful at lower levels instead of just one shot wonders, right? Um, Two orders of witches. You got a low order witches may progress to level 16. High or secret order witches may advance to level 22. Witches may be of any alignment, right? But when you go in and look at some of their spells, certain spells are restricted to certain alignments. Um, Maybe it kind of makes a little bit of a sense. Followers and hirelings, witches begin to get, other witches and stuff that uh, come with them into their coven, of course, right? Just like any other class. Now this was listed as an NPC, and we all know that no matter how many times they wrote in here, here's a new NPC for your game, everybody used them as character classes. Do they float on water? I don't know that that was specifically mentioned in here, but yeah, Just like any other human, they would float unless they have negative buoyancy, like tying rocks to them. That's why they throw them in the water with the rocks. The only other, the only other thing that I know of
I
that
mean,
floats as well as a witch on water is a duck, right? So
yeah, or wood. Maybe they're made of wood.
very small rocks. Yeah.
Accused.
Okay. It's not an accusation.
That's what you would
Correct, right?
say.
Yeah, a little bird. Okay,
A little
cool.
chick.
We're having way too much fun on this channel. Should be illegal. High orders. They describe the high order of secret witches and stuff. Usable weapons and magic items are in there. One of the things is witches can use a lot of items that are available to magic users. They cannot use rings. That's one of the things that was restricted to them. They're not unable to use rings. But I guess to make up for them, and give them other things they can do. They can brew poisons and narcotics. Truth drugs, love potions. Of course, that's what witches do. They make love potions, right? They can read magic user, druid, and cleric scrolls, right? Just kind of like the thief can, right? Can be read with a 10% chance of failure. Cleric scrolls can be read by a witch, but only those spells which are both cleric and witch spells may be employed. So you've got spells that are cleric-like as a witch, and if you find a scroll that's a cleric scroll, as long as it's similar to the scroll that you picked is on your list of spells you can cast, you can use that scroll and cast it, which is great. Candle magic is part of it. Tom Moldvay has a nice little article in here about mixture of fact and fantasy as far as witches and stuff go. Make a good description. It was a good read on his research and thought process and the way witches are, but that's not part of the class. It's just on the page. Right, you got the type of candles and stuff listed here that you can manufacture. You can brew a flying ointment. Flying is extremely powerful in old school Dungeons and Dragons, right? Here's your experience points, which is not too different than other character classes. Your spells that you get, your level titles that come with it. Always had to have level titles, right? And then there's the inherent ability gain, right? So you can brew poisons and narcotics beginning at 3rd level, right? You get your flying ointment at 13th level, right? But when one would assume that by the time you get to 13th level, you have probably already found a flying broom, I would think. Because otherwise, what kind of witch are you? Right? Notice back on here, level 21, they get a limited wish, which is kind of powerful. But limited wish has got some descriptions in the book as to how it should be. In the player's handbook, the description of the spell, and then in the Dungeon Master's Guide is some guidelines on how to adjudicate that sort of spell that's in there. Shape change. I would figure they would have been able to come in a little bit lower on this list, being able to shape change, because that was one of the common tropes of witches, was they were able to turn themselves into black cats and stuff, right? Right. And then we come with a list of, here's a list of the different spells, although
that page slipped
extra page that you added.
Everybody get to that 1980 convention or you're going to miss out.
Oh man, we missed that one. Yeah, you added an extra page there. But from page 9, right, here's the list of spells and stuff that come in them. Again, if it's the same spell as in the book, it's basically what it is replicated here. Otherwise, it's going to be described in here, the type of thing that's different. Immunity, right? All Jinn, Freet, and clerics are immune to the effects of a spell cast by witch if that spell is not described as identical to the blank spell of the same name where blah, blah, blah. It's the name of another spellcasting character class. So a witch may have a spell in here that's their own that is not identical to XYZ spell from a magic user list or cleric list, right? So Jinn, Ifrit, and clerics are immune to the effects of those spells. So there's some limitations to some of their spells. Several witch spells are described as only used by witches of certain alignments, right? So that's in there as well. Material components, all spells described, and I like material components. I know I've hammered away on it a number of times on here. Um, uh, how much I like material components. Here's a description of how to handle material components and stuff as far as the witch spells and stuff go. Casting time to converse space. Casting times are not listed in the explanation descriptions for each spell. The following general rules apply. Casting time for any spell described is identical to or generally the same as existing spell. It's the same as described. Oh, darn it. Can't exactly read it. Where is that page at? Oh, that's wrong one. Where is that page? Trying to read. Oh, there it is. Trying to read it off the bottom, and I can't see it because of my navigation panel. Let's see. Identical to or generally the same as an existing spell is the same as described in player's handbook for the spell referred to. Casting time for any other spell of 8th level or lower is a number of segments equal to the level of that spell. So your 5th level witch spell, if there's not a same spell in the player's handbook, casting time is 5 segments. Yeah. And then just the other caveats that's on there too. So they give a good description in here on this witch. There's a lot of work that went into this, and I think they put a lot of thought into creating this character class. And here we go. They're describing the different classes. For example, you have Cure Wounds, only usable by witches of good or neutral alignment. Right? By touching one character or creature, the witch can heal from 1 to 6 points of damage. So it's not the same as a cleric of 1 to 8, but at least they can do some healing. Right? Neutral witches cannot use Cure Wounds and Give Wounds on the same day. There's another spell down here, Give Wounds, usable only by witches of evil or neutral alignment. By touching one character or creature, the witch can cause from 1 to 6 points of damage. Neutral witches cannot give wounds more than once per day. So there's some restrictions on some of them, but otherwise there's a lot of good stuff that's in here. Of course, what witch would not be worth her salt if she didn't have Fireball and Lightning Bolt? Fireball, identical to 3rd level magic user spell of the same name, except that only an evil or neutral witch may cast it, and only one Fireball may be cast in a day. So it takes a lot of them to be able to do so. Lightning Bolt on the same thing. If you are a good witch, what was it? Was it Gwendolyn or Glenda? Good Witch of the North or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she was running around damaging anybody, right? So it's only bad witches really are the ones that get the option of being able to cause damage. Good witches are more along the lines of being beneficial, right? But they still get burned at the stake, same as bad witches did. So.
Sure did.
We got there. I read through 2E's Witch Kit. It was interesting. Male witch was a warlock. Well, that's what they called them. Yeah, exactly. And then there were some decent kits in 2E. Yeah. 2E had some kit books were well worth a good read if you're looking for ideas. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's probably the best part of 2E.
Yeah. Some more spell listings and talk about the differences here based on what these spells do as opposed to the ones that may be in the player's handbook. Useful guidance for the player to run. What was it? Dungeon Master read that Glenda was actually defrauding the Lollipop Guild, so she wasn't really a good witch then, was she? All about this. Good stuff in here for the witch. It was definitely very well thought out about it. You know, of course, astral projection, things like this, legend lore, right? They're able to, because that's historically one of the things you did was you went to witches to figure things out. Ancient history and ancient items and stuff like this, and bam, it's right in here. Although it is a 7th level spell, it's a little high up there on the list, but you can do it. Typically, witches, though, had a steep price for finding these sorts of things. Alrighty. More on the different spells and stuff that come in. Some good ones, Banish. Wither, of course, right? Dispel enchantment, right? Mass polymorph, turn everybody into sheep or rats or something, right?
Man, that wither ate immediately aged 100 years.
Problematic for humans and halflings and orcs, half orcs, right?
Sure.
It's exceedingly problematic, as written in the book, right? Yeah. More. I mean, they went through and detailed a lot of these things. They put a lot of work into this, a lot of consideration, right? But way at the last end of it, the very last spell, right, identical first level magic user spell, the same name. Kind of like right. It's a useful spell for magic users, and a lot of people don't pick it. Right? You can put a spell into your spell book that's not a level you can understand yet, but you can put it into your spell book already, which is kind of cool. Here's the other witch. Which year and issue was this? I don't think it's on any of your pages. Do you remember?
It was
Uh,
100 and let me see. I might have it 114, 114.
right. The witch has long been a popular non-player character. Non-player character. They have a lot of player characters, right? In the D&D and AD&D games, and longtime readers of Dragon magazine may recall the numerous incarnations of this character class and its powers over the years. The most recently published version of the witch appeared in Dragon issue number 43 in November 1980, which we just looked at. Bill Mulhausen's article was revised and edited by Kim Owen and Tim Moldvay. This version has been further expanded and revised by Roger E. Moore and edited by Karen Martin. That was a different Roger Moore than the guy that played Bond, wasn't it? I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
could be the
Yeah.
same guy. We don't know. I've never seen the two of them in the room together. Yeah,
That's true.
yeah. It must be noted that the witch is a very powerful spellcaster. It could be conceivably used as a player character on an experimental basis, but it works best as an NPC used to challenge parties of adventurers on long-term basis. That's your BBEG, what they call them now, right? The class has been deliberately given extraordinary spellcasting powers in terms of numbers of spells available and the power of individual spells. Player character witches may prove to be overwhelming, but NPC witches are thus better able to challenge large groups of adventurers. The decidedly evil nature of the witch, as a rule, is also a point against its use as player character class. Now, here's where they revised it from the evil nature, whereas in the 43 article, at least they give you the option of being a good witch. Right. Um, Reading through this fairly quickly, it is very similar to the one we just looked at, but they just come up with some extra tweaks in here, but just some minor adjustments and stuff. Nothing major, very similar to the other one, which I think it was the intention, just go ahead and make some revisions on it. Right, back into your secret orders, your hiring apprentices, your special abilities that were listed, brewing potions and stuff are all in that article. Um, some more special abilities gained were added in here a little bit, but not a significant amount of them. Your candle magic was described in here as well. Use all magical scrolls at 9th level. Druid magic users and illusionary spells can be read and used with a 10%, same thing, 10% chance of failure. Cleric scrolls be read by a witch, but only those spells used by both clerics and witches may be employed with a 20% chance of failure. So even though witches can use those spells, um, there's a chance that it's going to fail them. Magic manufacture magical items, 12th level, which is pretty similar to what the player character is required to make magical items. So you could go to a witch here. This would be your oracle or something, as well as, hey, I need these sorts of items constructed, and they can make uh, wards and brooches and things like this for you. Manufacture control doll. I don't know. That would be voodoo, right? Yeah. And here's a list of the spell list. All right. The first level spells listed here do not include read magic and write, which are automatically gained by all witches. So they take right, which was at the end of the list of the previous witch, and just threw it in here automatically get it. Same thing with read magic. They have to be able to read magic, otherwise, how can they do a lot of the things that they do? Right, so it's a bonus automatic spell. Let's see. What do they say here? Let's see. Certain spells are duplicates of existing magic user, cleric, or druid or illusionist spells. These spells are noted as such below by the presence of a letter, number, symbol, designated the class and spell level which the witch spell duplicates. Thus, the witch spell clairvoyance, MU3, is in all ways the same as the third level magic user spell of the same name, except for differences noted elsewhere. Right. Some minor alterations in spells, casting, or effects are noted as well, if any exist. Right. All duplicated spells that are reversible in their original form are also reversible as witch spells unless stated otherwise. See, for example, darkness and light. Right. Some explanations on what they can do for those. They got a pretty fair, good, healthy list of stuff that they can do. Right. Use of magic right here on the next page. Awesome. Yeah. High secret order spells, because when you're in that high secret order, you get some additional spells that you can get access to. Spell descriptions, here's where they go into the descriptions, like mending, for example, MU-1, as described. Otherwise, they cut in here the different things, like cure wounds, use only witches of good or neutral alignment, right? Again, just like the other one, they copied a lot of that other stuff in here, just did some tweaks and stuff on the class. I guess maybe updated and maybe fix some things that they saw that may have been problematic with the class. Go through here, read through all the different spells and stuff that they can do, and the different adjustments. There's some good stuff that a witch can do. Right. And here's one. Looks like she might be in a magic circle out there somewhere, helping them construct Stonehenge, apparently. Yeah. But that was a druid formation. Well, anyway, we'll let that go. Yeah. More listing of their spells and their descriptions. They were detailed on it. They went through all of it. And there, as you can see, there is a lot that a witch is able to do. So we've reached the ends of the things that I had wanted to talk about here. So what ways can you reverse aging in 1E? I remember the healer class and Dragon Mag had something to do with that. I can't recall the spell. Reverse aging in 1E. There is Potion of Longevity, which will reduce that. What else was there that will reduce aging?
I want to say it was limited to like limited wish or something like that, because the concept, or even a wish spell, because the concept was there was a serious there was a serious restriction on repeatedly casting certain spells, and that age you, and age was sort of the thing that prevented that sort of magic from proliferating in the world. Otherwise, everybody's running around with permanency and permanent haste and all this kind of stuff. So it was hard to do. I think even and I think even Potion of Longevity had a thing where there was a chance that it would yeah.
So off the top of my head, I know that Potion of Longevity is one way of reversing aging. I can't remember any spells or anything like that would do so. But a wish, you can pretty much get anything out of the wish, depending on how much of a rules or wish lawyer your dungeon master is. I know people that twist your words and stuff for them. So man, you have to get an attorney to write your wish for you. So the witch could negate wither aging with limited wish. Yeah, of course. That's how she drums up business. She casts wither on you and ages you, and then you pay her. Of course, you didn't know it was her that cast wither on you. She was shape changed, right? And now you go to the local witch and say, "Hey, I need to get my aging restored. Can you do limited? Oh yes, I can for this much gold. Thank you. So,
You
all
know,
right.
the traditional sort of idea of the witch, you know,
Mhm.
with the moles and the hook nose and all. I'd rather them wither me than cast Seduction 7 or whatever it was. You know, just end it. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah. The misshapen witches, as I recall, though, came mostly out of Celtic mythology for the most part. That's where
Yeah,
that stuff came from.
yeah,
And
and
they were the
yeah.
ones that
The
would curse
Shakespearean ones were
you they would disguise themselves, curse you, and then you would have to go find them to be uncursed, right? And it was the way they were messing with people. Yeah, it was of
right.
course, that's the way Celtic mythology is. Everybody's messing with everybody else and all of that,
Hmm.
very fey oriented. So those were the classes and stuff that I had on my list to talk about. Some of those that I'd gotten in there were specific requests. So I threw into Doomsword's lap one of the other requests, but he said his favorite was Bard, so I said, go ahead and do the Bard. And you just let me know when you want me to advance the page, and I will click the button. So have at it.
I've got it up here too. Should I just go
Oh,
ahead
have
and
you?
share it so you don't have to do that?
Yeah, you can do that. And
Can
I
I?
will remove mine, and you can add yours. Present
Let's
or
see.
invite.
Share screen. Uh, where's this thing at here? It's not that. It's this. See if that comes up right. I think you'll have to put it on there.
Yep, there you go. Ooh, looks a little fuzzy, but it's okay.
Does it? Yeah, you can pull. Wait, here, let me. Um, yeah, it does look a little fuzzy. I don't know why. Maybe you just pull it up and I'll just go through mine
Yeah, because the PDF you
because it
gave me
looks
looks
clear
really
here,
good.
but it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, the PDF. Ooh, what do I do? I don't want to add that. Okay, you've got it. There we go. All right, so I put it up there. Just tell me when to click the button. I'll click the button for you.
All right. Yeah. So the basic idea with this guy
Oh,
here,
hold on, though.
what I like.
Luscious Narwhal has stopped by to say salutations.
Greetings and salutations, or felicitations, as you might prefer. Yeah. So the thing that I like about this part, there's a couple of things I like about it, and we'll go through it and look at it. You know, not in any tremendous amount of detail or whatever, but the appendix bard in the player's handbook
Hmm.
was a bard. It's a really interesting character class, but it's limited in a couple of important ways. Right, one being that you have to handle that ridiculous progression before you become a first level bard in the first place. So you have to go through what 5 levels of fighter, and then surpass that in thief, and then
Yeah.
right before you can actually become a bard. And then when you do become a bard, you become a level 1 bard. So it kind of breaks sort of the entire concept of levels in a way, because if you're traveling with a regular adventuring party, they're gonna be like 10th level, and then you're gonna end up being a first level bard, and you can advance to like 20th level bard. So you might end up
Hmm.
30th level or something like that. And then additionally, it's just kind of, I feel like it's kind of shoehorned in. Now if anybody wants to play one, it's great, and I think it's cool. But this particular article sort of aims to fix a lot of that stuff and give it a lot more utility, in that you can use it in a lot of different ways. So this bard starts out as a bard, doesn't have to jump through the levels and the dual classing that's not dual classing, the
Hmm.
exceptions to the rules, and that stuff. So he says here he used the Welsh version of the bard, basically from the Mabinogion, and used that kind of as the inspiration for the character, which is a fine inspiration. And
Hmm.
it's actually kind of helpful because all different types of cultures had individuals that were, you know, the Vikings had scalds. These guys, you know, had their
Yeah.
traditional Celtic type bards, but you could actually see taking this character, changing the level titles, sort of changing a few of the things that he could do, and have it fit in any culture, even a completely fantastical culture within your own world. You know, it's sort of a serious version of a traveling minstrel, and I think it ends up fixing a lot. So on the next page, we can see that you know, it's still difficult to qualify for. You know, not as hard, not nearly as hard, but we're looking at strength 9, intelligence 15, wisdom 12, constitution 6, dexterity 16, charisma 15, and they don't get 10% to earned experience points based on having a high prime requisite, you know, or exceptional ability scores anywhere. And then is that under your control to where you can change
Yep.
the
None of
page,
my control.
George?
Yep. Just as an aside, I based my Monday night game on Wales, and a lot of Welsh stuff is incorporated in it because I like that particular medieval culture.
Right, right. Yeah, and then you know we've got the experience point table. So this actually meshes a lot better with the rest of the classes, and I think the level titles are a little more reasonable and in line with what we find in AD&D itself. Because what happens in first edition in the PHB appendix version of the Bard, there's these bardic colleges, and it's sort of something that's a little bit harder, I think, to fit into a generic campaign world, or even a historically based campaign world that's not specifically designed around the idea that you got these guys running around through the world. So that's one of the reasons that I like this. So they get six sided dice for hit points. The level titles are there. Experience points are right in line with just about everything else. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when you get to really high level, as you can see, like level 23, 5,400,000 experience points. Nobody's ever getting 5,400,000 experience points, but it's a nice idea. And then, as part of their regular special abilities for the class that follow them all the way through the level progression, you've got the charm, lore, and reading languages.
Ah, so
So
this
they
is
can be
where the
human.
charm thing started.
They're right, right.
That's the
Oh
whole
boy.
reason. Bards
Yeah,
are the reason
yes,
why we
yes.
have
But
half
remember,
dragons.
at 10th level, they only have a 48% chance, and if they fail, whatever it is that they're trying to charm kills them. That's my new house rule. Uh, you know, so there's a 50-50 chance that you're dying. So they can be humans, elves, half elves, and all of those have a unlimited advancement, which makes it a little bit unique among the special characters because there's very few other character classes that have more than one or two unlimited advancements, right? But a halfling or a dwarf can also be a bard and be up to 5th level. Lawful good, lawful neutral, neutral good, or chaotic neutral or chaotic good. So I guess it's basically saying, you know, no evil, right? And this bard's interesting in that they tend to be lawful. That law is based on, I guess, obeying custom and
Mhm.
culture and tradition, which I think fits pretty well. You look at the PHB version of the Bard, and it seems more like sort of a roguish kind of ne'er do well, at least in the earlier levels. And I think
Sure.
this is a little more accurate to what I would consider a bard to be in one of I just said bard to be. What do you know? In one of in one of the worlds that, you know, a fantasy world of my own creation, or something like
Mhm.
Greyhawk or whatever. So they can wear leather armor, wooden shield. That's it. The shield can't be used when the bard attempts charming, because requires a stringed instrument to be played, and that requires the use of both hands. They've got a hand axe, club, dagger, darts, hammer, javelin, horseman's mace, scimitar, but flaming oil, no poison. They use the same to hit table as fighters, so that's right in line with the PHB Bard. However, it says here they never strike more than once per round, so they're not going to get 3-2. They're not going to get 2 attacks per round. They're not going to get 3-2. They're not going to get anything like that. And he gets proficiency with one weapon.
There's only one other person I know who understands Bard to be. I wonder if this is
right.
Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so proficiency with one weapon, that hamstrings him pretty good, but it also sort of, from my perspective, leads into the idea that he's going to be most proficient with whatever musical instrument he's involved with, and that sort of fighting, even though he uses the fighter matrix, is a sort of secondary function of the character. He also gets a -4 penalty, non-proficiency penalty, which is pretty harsh, and then an additional weapon proficiency every 4 levels. Right. So, in other words, a 5th level bard, it can have 2 weapon proficiencies, maybe a hand axe and a short sword or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, even though he uses the fighter matrix, I think it would kind of say that, this bard character class is particularly interested in focusing on individual things, such as an instrumentalist would be, and becoming expert at those things before moving on to other stuff. And then he can employ magic weapons of the types normally usable by a bard. Magic leather armor, wooden shield, potions, scrolls, rings, rods, wands, miscellaneous. The stuff that's usable by all classes. Any books, librams, manuals, tomes that are read by a bard cause the same effect as if the bard were a druid. So it sort of crosses over into that druid territory. They can use Rod of Beguiling, all types of the Horn of Valhalla. So that kind of leads into the idea, if that this could very easily be a skald as much as sort of a Celtic bard, right?
Sure.
And then, of course, the instruments of the bards. Looks like they get some benefits if they're using like drums of panic or horn of blasting, things that magic items that are related, even loosely, to musical instruments themselves.
Usable by anybody.
Yeah, and on
but
the
here
next
we got
page,
this is in an expert's hands. Yeah.
Right. And on the next page, they continue that with Lyre of Building, Pipes of the Sewers, Horn of the Tritons, Horn of Valhalla. Horn of Valhalla, double the amount of summoned fighters, which is excellent. Saving throws as a cleric. Yeah, which, except for paralyzation, poison, and death magic, which he makes as an equal level magic user. So pretty well rounded there. Now, that's going to give you a little bit of overhead in trying to fill out the character sheet and whatever, because you're going to have to look at 2 different saving throw tables. They can cast most druid spells. And then I guess there's a list of spells that they'll never be able to use. Effectiveness of druid spell cast by a bard is same as that of a druid 1 level lower. So they cast druid spells. 3rd level bard is going to be able to cast druid spells at a 2nd level of ability. And that's the other part. So when you're playing a bard traditionally in the PHB appendix sense, you're not getting spells for a while. For a long while, longer than a lot of campaigns last. And anybody who's is a bard to be has to keep that in mind, and hope and pray that the campaign and that their interest in it and all that stuff lasts long enough for them to actually be able to do that.
You're likely to advance.
Right. That's true. You actually have to be there in order for that stuff to happen, right? I'm one to talk. But they get druid spells right off the bat, and then they get illusionist spells at 5th level. Okay,
Well,
and what's really interesting,
right off the bat, if you take a look, they don't get druid spells until 2nd level. So 1st level, is nothing yet. But
they should have put a dash in there.
Yeah.
My eyes failing me. Yeah, so 2nd level, thank you. And then 5th level, they get illusionist spell, and they get 2, which is pretty cool, right? So your 5th level bard, he has some parity and usefulness with the rest of the characters in the party at 5th level, because your 5th level magic user, he's going to have 3rd level spells. 5th level cleric's going to have 3rd level spells, which are generally, that's sort of like a milestone level where
Yeah.
characters become where characters become more capable. And this bard, at that point, the other bard, he's just going to be a 5th level fighter, right? This bard is going to have a couple of illusionist spells and four handful, of druid spells.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So bards' illusionist spells are justified because they're derived from their ability to enter strong impressions upon people's minds. And then they have certain illusionist spells that they're not able to use. It goes through a list of the illusionist spells and the druid spells that are available to them.
Well, the illusionist
Right. And a
spells actually
bard.
does make a bit of sense, really.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and we had just recently talked about how illusionists gain their spells. It says here that bards gain them in the same way that illusionists do. So that's interesting. It's also interesting that the bard's effectiveness in casting illusionist spells is 3 levels less than have attained as a bard, which I suppose would be why they don't get them till 5th level, right?
Okay.
Right, because so your 5th level bard is going to cast illusionist spells as a 2nd level illusionist, and then they've got a bunch of druid spells and illusionist spells that the guy will never be able to use. Obviously, you would have to modify this if you're
Yeah.
using Unearthed Arcana or something like that that adds spells or bringing in spells from Dragon Magazine. You'd have to modify this list.
Yeah.
Yeah, scholarly sort, perusing old works, learning songs of foreign languages. So studious types of guys. Read language percentage. He can still read only 25. Right, so that's interesting. So if a bard has a 25% chance to read languages and is successful in the role,
The table is on
he
there.
can
Where's
still
that?
read only 25% of the information contained therein.
Okay. There you
So
go.
right. So they say he's basically kind of a sketchy learner in the sense of reading languages that he's not familiar with. But that's because he doesn't have to be taught
He picks
those
things up by immersing
languages.
himself in them. Yeah.
Right, right, exactly. And the next page they go through the bard's lore. So it's basically he can determine nature of magical or legendary people, places, things as a lore percentage, and it works the way that you would expect it to work. If you've got so they're basically saying here, he can't necessarily determine all the stuff. Is sort of a limitation on the character, right? He can't determine all this stuff. It's not a substitute for detect magic and identify and stuff like that. Maybe if the magic items that are present in your campaign world have some sort of special nature associated with them, if it's a
Mhm.
special sword or some other type of special magical item, or it's something that's been invented by an ancient wizard that's been whispered of in legends and stuff like that. The bardic lore might be a little more useful in that, but basically the lore percentage roll, I think what they're saying here is that it's not a, it's not just a, okay, I use my bardic lore. Okay, roll your lore percentage. All right, I know everything. And that's something you'll find in AD&D a lot, is that a lot of the abilities and even the spells and whatever have limits, and those limits should be carefully considered. Another ability is charming creatures. So this goes to his charm
Mhm.
through singing and playing. He's got a 4-inch, so 40-foot radius. All non-associated creatures are subject to the charm. So previously associated creatures who are now hostile to the bard may be affected. So basically, if one of your characters, say the bard's traveling along with a group, a couple of the characters get a charm person or something else, or helm of alignment change or something that makes them hostile toward the bard, or if something happens that causes the townsfolk and stuff to be hostile to the bard and his party, his charm and suggestions can actually have a capability of reversing that. It's a percentile dice, equal to or under the charm percent.
Like the other
Right.
effects
So the
the
bard.
bard. Yeah. Bard singing and or playing also has other effects. By merely singing a poem or song, the bard increases morale of associated creatures by 10%. Cool. Yeah.
Right. Increases the morale,
That's some
10%.
good stuff.
Singing and playing. Yeah, negates the song effects of harpies, prevents similar attacks which rely upon song, and +1 to saving throws of associated creatures, bard himself, against attacks which are based on sound. Right, groaning spirit, roar of an andrew sphinx, a dragon.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, and this is actually pretty useful too. They're soothing for a road weary traveler, thus allowing an additional 20% of normal movement per day if on foot, and 10% per day if all of the members are mounted. So, say that you can move 20 miles in a day, you're going to get an additional 20% because that bard is going to keep you going. And if you're doing a hex crawl or any sort of overland travel, that's basically invaluable. He can change form at 11th level, as the druid is capable of doing, which is pretty interesting, and I think that works sort of into that kind of fey sort of mythology that you had spoken about earlier.
Yep.
At 11th level, he can get his henchmen and hirelings. He won't work with any other bards while adventuring, but they will practice their music or poetry with each other. So they don't hate each other or anything like that. They do not adventure together. you know, it's a master craftsman. He works
Hmm.
alone, right? They will attempt to buy serviceable clothes for traveling and will buy fine clothes with the most exquisite instrument they can acquire for use when they perform. And they're like other character classes, like the monk, the ranger, paladin. They keep enough money to maintain themselves in a modest manner, and then donate the rest to a worthy cause or give it away, not to other PCs. Okay, none of those classes are allowed to give their stuff to other
Mhm.
PCs as a matter of course, right? If you wanted to maybe donate a little bit to somebody to help them, say, buy a magic item or get some sort of healing spell cast on them or
Right.
whatever, or pay their rent, that's one thing. But this is specifically saying, hey, okay, my bard has this best friend in town and I give him all my stuff. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
No, no.
Yeah, so that basically covers that guy, and then they go on into sort of say they move right in to sage advice, asking a
Bard
Q and A
questions. Yeah.
about bards.
Mhm.
Yeah, now that Q and A is not related to the bards that we just talked about, even
No,
though
that's
they
one
immediately
and the bard out
proceed.
of the book. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you kind of need sage advice for that because there's a lot of things that aren't necessarily laid out in a way that answers those questions on
Sure.
its own. Right.
Yeah.
Next, we've got
Here's what
this,
everybody
right?
was waiting for. I know somebody
Yes.
specifically asked for this one, and you said you'll take this one on. Yeah. This is another
I
specific
will take
request that
this
we
one
had.
on.
Yeah.
Yes, this one is one that will get you hated and derided by anybody, basically by anybody who's an AD&D purist, right? Now this is an NPC, but like Great Old One said, a lot of these characters, right? A lot of these characters, even though they're specifically NPCs, we've all been there as kids or whatever, however old you were when you originally used this stuff, or even now, if you never originally used this stuff and are looking to pick it up. Players always want to play the NPC. I mean, even in the player's handbook, where certain race class combinations were denoted as NPC only, people
Yep.
wonder why. right? And they want to
Oh,
play it. And
right.
whether, I'm just going to say this, whether or not you allow this thing is completely up to you in your game. Now, I'll
No.
also say that yes, I'll also say that if you were to allow something like this, you're going to have to go through it, and you're going to have to make sure that that it somehow works with what you're doing, both mechanically
Mhm.
and flavor wise, and those types of things. Like, I'd be a lot more open in my games, and that's not to say a lot, but or a lot at a base level. I'd be a lot more open to having paladins of different deities that aren't necessarily lawful good deities than I would to having anti-paladin PCs, right? So there's a particular reason these guys are. I mean, it's not the same mechanically, but you can basically look at Dragonlance's Lord Soth or something like that to expand into something beyond. Say you wanted to have a classed Death Knight. That's where sort of the anti-paladin NPC
Mhm.
kind of comes into play. So it's basically, as they say here, it's basically all black, right? The black horse, the black armor, the black sword, and the grim skull-shaped keep raised in black basalt or gleaming obsidian. Echoes of Lord of the Rings, certainly. And he associates with brigands, thieves, assassins, orcs, ogres, hobgoblins, trolls. He's not a good guy. To be more of a champion of their god rather than holy warriors of good. Yes, yeah, and like I said, they I don't have as much of a problem with a player playing a paladin that doesn't directly fit the mold as I would of the evil anti-paladin, right? But it's an excellent enemy, and just like anything else in Dragon Magazine, there's something to learn from it, or most anything else. On the next page, to determine the characteristics of an anti-paladin, refer to the table below. Now, this is also a departure from what we see elsewhere. Okay. If an 18 is rolled for strength, dexterity, or constitution, the anti-paladin has a 25% chance for each of those characteristics that he has exceptional ability. So not only exceptional strength, but he can have exceptional dexterity or exceptional constitution, right? The strength is treated the same way as it is in the PHB. Dexterity, if he has exceptional dexterity, +4 on reaction attacking adjustment, -5 defensive adjustment, and 3 attacks per round for high level anti paladins. So you can imagine if you were
Mhm.
playing this as a character or whatever, assuming that there was some way that you could travel with a party of adventurers. This separates out this guy as a PC from everybody else in the first place. Hey, we've all seen it, especially with 46 drop lowest or, method 3 or anything like that. There's a chance you're going to get an 18 strength, 18 constitution, or 18 strength, 18 dexterity. And that's going to break the hell out of the other characters.
Yep.
Right. And
Automatically high
charisma
powered. Yeah.
requires, yeah, exactly. I mean, when you just look at the dexterity, when you get the opportunity to all of a sudden, reach 3 attacks per round for the higher levels, that breaks fighters, that breaks paladins and rangers and the rest. Charisma requires special treatment. True evil will either reveal itself in all its hideous ugliness or disguise itself behind a pleasant exterior. So they're either sinfully ugly, 4 or less charisma, or devilishly handsome, 17 plus. I'm the latter. So sorry guys, but that doesn't automatically make me an anti-paladin. Just to be clear. Um,
Yeah, you don't have any of the rest
so
of the abilities on the list.
no, and I'm actually closer to sinfully ugly, but that's the joke, right? So to determine charisma, roll a 4-sided die with a roll of 1 equaling 3, 2 equals 4, 3 equals 17, and 4 equals 18. Right. And then same thing on a roll of 1 or 4, there's a 25% chance that the anti paladin has an exceptional charisma. If it's If it's exceptionally low, he'll look as though he could break mirrors simply by glancing at them, and will automatically cause fear in men and animals whenever he shows his face. This thing's this thing's kind of campy, isn't it? An
Sure.
exceptionally high charisma, on the other hand, will instantly charm men and many monsters as the spell, I suppose, charm monster. In both cases, saving throws are allowed. Uh, Average experience of the members of the party in the counter. So the experience level of Anti-Paladin is based on the average experience level of the members of the party in the encounter. If the average is 10 or less, roll d10 for the Anti-Paladin's experience level. If 11 or greater, roll a d20. Who made this thing?
So here's an
um,
idea of scaling. There's an idea of scaling. This
right.
is your encounter. Here's how you're going to scale this encounter towards your party. Right. Where
Exactly.
that
Yes.
wasn't really that. This is the first I've ever, as far as the game goes, where I've ever heard about scaling your encounters towards your party. It used to be just whatever
Me too.
rolled, that's what it was. Well, here's an idea of matching things up with the party. Here's where it's starting to come into play.
Yeah, and that's actually a very good point. And this is July 1980, I suppose, at least according to the header. So, yeah, basically, as you'd imagine, champion, the regular paladin, champion of all that's good and lawful. This guy is the complete opposite. Okay, his alignment's always chaotic evil without exception. And there's actually a number of exclamation marks at the ends of sentences in here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just to make sure that you know this guy's straight up chaotic evil. He enjoys several benefits for his class. So these are the special abilities associated with the class. +2 bonus on all saving throws. That's standard paladin fare. Immunity to disease, which is standard paladin fare, but the next part is not. He's a carrier with the ability to transmit the disease of his choice to the character of his choice by touch alone. But he can do that once a week for every 5 levels of experience. Laying
Keeping the
on
cleric
hands
busy.
is right. It causes wounds when used on somebody else or cures himself. Otherwise, it's just like paladinic lay on hands. Protection from good, just the opposite of protection from evil. Aura. He gets the thief's backstabbing ability. This is a nice guy right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, thief's backstabbing ability and the use of poison. He's an aficionado, in fact, of the fine art of poisoning. He favors the poison cup over armed combat and gaining his evil ends. So, if he absolutely must face an equal or superior opponent in open battle, he'll be sure to envenom his blade to obtain a combat advantage. So this guy's not very honorable either. Yeah, I mean, you might even call him, Craven.
Well, that's the whole
So they
point behind
basically
it,
go,
though. Yeah, he
yeah,
is the
yeah,
exact opposite.
right,
Diametrically
which is a
opposed.
really
Yeah.
good point. Yeah, and they go on to say that he considers poisoning to be an aesthetic pleasure and a means of artistic expression. Must be artfully accomplished with finesse under the right conditions of mood, lighting, and setting. Right. This thing's funny and interesting. Interesting if you take pieces and parts of it. Right. So he might use it to test new poisons or whatever. It's an important expression of the Anti-Paladin's artistic nature. He enjoys the finer things in life, right?
Mhm.
And he'll prefer 2 and 3 stage poisons when they can be maintained or obtained. Yeah. Yeah. So he likes to watch the stages of the suffering. So
Mm.
uh, obviously not a PC type, though it might be fun to have a party game where everybody plays an anti-paladin, right? And then they just go on through some role-playing stuff and descriptive stuff here.
Yeah.
The optional poisons suggested in Poisons A to X. I need to revisit that article because I had forgotten about it. On the bottom right, the December 1979 issue of Dragon,
Ooh, yeah.
it goes into poisons quite a
There
bit.
wasn't enough
And that's
poisons in first edition Dungeons and Dragons. I guess I need to read that one.
yeah, and they didn't really go into the concept of neurotoxins versus other types of
Yeah.
poisons. At least I don't think in the original materials, and I wonder if
Not
that
by
article
itself,
goes into
no.
some of
Yeah.
that. Right. Next page, we get to poisons available by experience level. So they're obviously using that
That
article.
table. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and matching it up to this table. So yeah, he's obviously a connoisseur of poisons. At third level and above, he affects undead, devils, and demons as if he were an evil cleric. For each ability, for each experience level he gains. Yeah, yeah. So it gains by one. At this level, his sordid reputation for pure, unadulterated evil is such that undead or other evil creatures will actually seek him out in order to enter into his service. Interesting. Fourth level and above, he might have a special warhorse. It's speed of a medium warhorse. There's an additional 25% chance that it is, I'm sure we saw this coming, in fact, a nightmare. You know, the actual
The only
nightmare horse
thing I would
monster.
think of is nightmares. Weren't they lawful evil though? But still, anyway.
Yeah, yeah, they were lawful evil, right? Because they were devilish more than demonic, right? I think that's how it goes.
Anyway,
Yeah, invariably, no matter what type of horse he has, the eyes are going to be red, and the horse is going to be coal black and doing double damage whenever trampling the weak, helpless, and aged underfoot. At ninth,
oh, this guy
at
and the
ninth
witch
level, he
together are
gets
going to be bad.
yeah, yeah. At ninth level, he gets cleric spells. Uh, these spells will always be the reverse or evil type whenever possible. They're a subclass of fighter, so they can use the scrolls, potions, magic items normally associated with fighter use. So equipping him, he'll come fully equipped with armor, shield, weapons, horse. Armor will be full plate or plate mail, metal shield, weapons capable of inflicting maximum damage per blow against even heavily armored opponents, even without the use of poison. So I suppose you'd have to look and kind of see what those weapons are, and if you were playing weapon versus armor type, you know that would be a consideration. Things like a heavy flail, perhaps a two-handed sword, and those types of things. Uh, right, and then
Ooh, here's a good question.
I would imagine so. I
Well,
haven't seen where they've said that yet, but I think it would be probably pretty difficult since this guy is. I mean, they've gone to great length to explain that this guy is like the ultimate evil.
exceptionally powerful, so he'd probably be a little tougher to turn than a paladin would be. Probably along the
Right,
lines of more like a major demon or something as opposed to lesser.
right. And then they go on to talk about how to use this guy and, to realize how ultimately powerful it is. Even when alone, the Anti-Paladin is one very tough customer at any level. Give him a few poisons, let him make one or two backstabbing attacks, throw in a special warhorse, a body of human and inhuman troops, and a castle. And you have an opponent which even the foolhardy will hesitate to attack. Right. DM discretion is strongly advised before giving this guy any magic items. Yeah, and they go on to say how to use it and basically how to not accidentally TPK your group, right? Now, the unholy sword, right? So table 3 outlines the percentage chance by experience level that the anti-paladin has acquired such a sword in the course of his perfidious
Hold on a
career.
minute. Let me jump in here with this one. I've always got this ready. Turn paladins. Paladins.
Right.
Let's see. A paladin of first or second level can be turned by an evil cleric. That would be A, which is the equivalent of like a mummy, which would mean you would have to be at least fourth level. Third or fourth level can be turned by an evil cleric, right? Sixth or seventh, it keeps progresses along. Um, fourth level can turn to first level at 20, and it keeps bumping up a little bit from there on out from there. So I would probably flip this on there, but along the lines of um, evil creatures from lower planes, such as minor demons, lesser devils, mesodemons, night hags, from 1 to 2 in number as a rule, right? So that's the double special F. So you would have to be at
Yep.
least eighth level to start turning those. I would probably put him on that same level based on the power that's listed in this article.
Yeah, I agree, and that was my initial thought when the question came up. And just as an aside, not everybody realizes this, but if you look at the turn undead table in uh, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, you will see that clerics are capable of turning creatures from the lower planes and
Yeah, on the
whatever.
night that
It's
you
not just
missed,
undead and paladins.
yeah, on the night that you missed, I showed everybody my spreadsheet here, and that's on my
Oh, okay.
spreadsheet here. That's how I
Right,
have a
right.
ready reference sheet that they're all trying to talk me
Ah,
into making a Dungeon Master's screen out of it. But
right, right. Um, if you do, you keep that to yourself. Unless they buy you a coffee, right? Then you know,
yeah,
you give me a coffee, I'll give you my GM
oh, I
screen.
was about ready to just
Um,
put it out there for free. Them have that spreadsheet. Okay, that's a good idea. Buy me coffee. I'll give you a copy of my
yeah,
spreadsheet
there you go.
because I'm just
So
dumping things onto the sheet. That's all. And as I go along playing the
right,
game, I add more.
yeah, yeah, and that's always useful to have if you're GMing, no matter how you do it. If you're doing it at a
Mhm.
table or building it into your VTT or whatever, you should have that stuff.
Reference
Um,
comes handy because then it clears up questions. Just straight out of the book, no rules arguing with me or anything like that. I mean, a DM's fiat is always ultimate, but I like to say, here, this is what the rules say. Let's work with what the rules are. If there isn't a rule, then I will fudge or whatever you want to consider. But
Right, right, and of course the idea is, in all fairness and everything else, that, yeah, fiat would be used when an adjudication has to be made. That's how the game is generally meant to be played. In fairness, the GM should know his rules, and the players should end up figuring those out, and they can work together off the same subset of stuff so that nobody's treated unfairly. And from my experience, Great Old Ones always does a good job of that and cares about that. So they've got some special rules for magic items, talking about, don't give them stuff because they're going to be too deadly and wipe out your characters. But they give you an exception, right? His unholy sword. So when it's unsheathed, it will project and there's a percentage chance based on his level, which I think I mentioned. It will project a 1 inch, 10 foot diameter, so 5 foot radius circle of power, allowing the Anti-Paladin to dispel magic at a level of magic use equal to his experience level. If he has an unholy sword, there's an additional 25% chance that it is in reality a +5 unholy reaver.
hmm,
And the unholy reaver imparts a 50% magic resistance to everything within a 5 inch radius.
allied with the
5 inch radius, huh?
anti-paladin, of course.
Yeah, yeah, and he must hold it to right. So this is a kind of insane.
It's
50%
broken.
magic resistance to everything within a 5 inch radius. That's not 5 inches, that's 50 feet. Okay,
Yeah.
so 100-foot diameter magic resistance. Now, they don't say here at what level that magic resistance takes effect. I would assume it's at the same level of the Anti-Paladin because that's important. If you pay attention to magic resistance, and we've spoken about it, it's sort of a sliding scale based on the level of the magic and the level of the individual who has magic resistance. Dispel magic in a 50-foot radius at level equal to experience level of the Anti-Paladin inflicts +10 damage points in addition to normal damage, but only against lawful good opponents. If wielded by a character of evil alignment, the Unholy Reaver is just a normal +2 sword. If anyone else grabs it, it's a -2 curse sword, which means you have to hang on to it and all that good stuff. So they can't
Mhm.
have retainers, except I suppose for the undead who seek them out and follow them, as well as very wicked and unsavory types. Um, Yeah, some information for the
No
DM on how to
self-respecting elf,
surround this
not even
guy.
a thief, would ever serve such an evil master, although under certain conditions determined by the DM, a solitary drow might be found. Drow, are those mystical? Do these even exist? I've never heard of those before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
neither have I. Something to find.
Hmm.
Yeah, and more. No sages
Well,
ever serving
okay.
an anti-paladin. No
Yeah.
more than 20 human servitors. And his servitors are always at least one level lower than him. He can't have anybody approaching his level. He doesn't like that. He lords his position and power over lesser men, and he will not tolerate anyone being his equal in anything. Yeah. First level anti paladins. So this is the exception. Since zero level thieves, assassins, clerics, magic users, and alchemists simply do not exist, the only retainers that a first level anti paladin can have are fighter types, which will always be zero level fighting men. So his megalomania and whatever
Mhm.
makes it such that at first level he'll only grab zero level cannon fodder type guys. And then
Mhm.
once he gains a second level, he might hire the first level clerics and magic users and those kinds of guys to follow him around. He actually prefers non-human retainers over human types. They're more really more susceptible to conformity, I guess, depending on
Mhm.
what type of evil they would be. Strained relations, higher levels of experience. He just basically gets infamy around him. So a really interesting enemy for DMs to put in their game, particularly once you reach the level where you might actually have the capability as a group of player characters of
Mhm.
raiding a castle or eliminating some gigantic evil from the countryside. So
Yeah.
when looked
This
at
is your
in that
BB.
light,
This is your BBEG, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what everybody
when
likes to
looked at
say.
in
You're a
that
big
light,
bad
this
evil guy,
guy's
right?
great.
And with the rules
Hmm.
put in here, he's traveling around the countryside, progressing at kind of like the same rate as your player characters are. And they may run into him here or there, so this is a recurring bad guy that they can get to. Always
Yeah,
plot
yeah,
armor may be on him to have him escape or something, but for the most part, this is a re and it the way it's built, it can grow, it scales with the party, which is makes it a good unique monster.
yeah. Consider the situation where something happens where your adventuring group gets involved with a paladin and some particular early on, right? And
Yeah.
some particular circumstance causes him to fall from grace and he's never able to regain his paladinship and then basically goes berserk and hunts you down for the rest of your career, right?
Hmm.
So there's a lot of interesting things that could happen there. On the next page, we actually get the experience levels, his level titles, and the chances for human retainers, unholy swords, non-human retainers,
Hmm.
freeholds, whole bunch of other stuff here, whole bunch of tables for how to flesh out the guys surrounding him. And he can get a castle or whatever at any level, even first level. He'll either get it by clearing out and requiring or repairing a previously abandoned structure, which would obviously be the best use case at a low
Hmm.
level, by evicting the tenants of an already established freehold, which is one of his pastimes.
Yeah.
They want to make sure you know that, or by establishing his own. Always situated in a strong, easily defended location, affording him maximum opportunity for profit, mischief, and mayhem. Playing the anti-paladin. So, unlike most evil type, the anti-paladin disdains hack and slash as a primary means of obtaining his goals, preferring the more subtle and devious approach of a Fu Manchu. As a case in point, consider the kidnapping of a local princess on the eve of her wedding to a foreign prince. Right.
Oh,
So
that would
naturally,
never
the
happen.
anti-paladin. Right. The anti-paladin in that case would demand a large but not excessive ransom from her father for a safe return. However, when the emissaries arrive with the gold, they're ambushed by the anti-paladin's retainer and slaughtered to a man, save one. They would be spared to carry the grim news back to the girl's father. That's basically inspired by what Vlad Tepes, right? they sent the Turks or whatever sent the messengers to him,
Yeah.
and what does he do? He impales most of them and like sends the one guy back or something along those lines.
Mhm.
So they go on to say, and we touched on this because it was kind of implied, his real fatal flaw is his lack of courage. Despite his fearsome strength and formidable appearance, he is in reality a sniveling coward.
Mhm.
If his opponents equal or surpass him in experience, the anti-paladin must check his morale immediately upon facing any one of these types in single combat. He never need check initial morale against an inferior opponent or foe not included in one of the categories mentioned above. So that's when the above is when faced by his nemesis, the paladin, or a lawful good cleric, or any character of good alignment. Right. And they basically say there's an excellent chance by
Mhm.
failing a morale roll that his true cowardice will reveal itself. And then some rules related to that. I think we kind of get the point, but it's rules related to that if you need to flesh that out. And then they give you several scenarios and adventures, ideas that you could use to incorporate the guy in your game. And
Mhm.
then sort of randomly after that, table four, the spells usable by class and level, the cleric spells he gets.
Mhm.
In some adventures, players may attempt to recruit the anti-paladin as an NPC member of their group. Okay. Yeah. At any rate, he'll if it happens, he'll demand an ungodly share of any treasure found, at least 50%, and first choice on all magic items in payment for his services.
Mhm.
I feel like I've known people like this, at
Yeah.
least that part, but you know,
And then what he's
whatever.
going to do
And
is,
that's
at the most inopportune moment, he is going to poison the party. Yeah.
and and get in a judicious backstab if the opportunity presents itself. Um, yeah, and that's the end of the anti-paladin. There's a lot to think about there, and then the other characters obviously
Yeah.
have some utility for players. And this isn't even all of the character
No,
types. Yeah,
no, they would barely scratch the surface on them. There was lots of these. Um, There we go. I tried to play an anti-paladin once, but someone told me to just play an assassin. Well, I can't guess who that someone might be, but hey, same sort of thing. I don't have an anti-paladin. We got an assassin in my game. You can play that. Yeah. Yeah, this is just a scratch and a surface on a look at some of those classes that were in there. I picked the ones out of there that I kind of like that I thought were kind of fun. Plus the one that I really like, the actual one that I use, which is the monk. Um, so I think this was a great, great, great review of some of the character classes, and there's plenty more in there we can go back and look at. Joe Kaufman was pestering me earlier about the healer, so maybe we may want to look at that someday too, and add that to another list that we can look at again sometime. And any other requests, anybody other favorite requests in there, throw it in there, throw it in the comments and stuff, and let us know, and we'll look at that kind of stuff too, and um, figure out if we can work on how to fit that kind of stuff into a campaign or a game. But for the answer to the question, is somebody can I play an anti-paladin in your game? The answer is always going to be no. Just saying.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Dungeon Master D did bring up something that's actually kind of interesting and compelling. That's what I've been chuckling at the last comment.
With this one, oh, you can play
Yeah.
an anti-assassin. You give your life to defend someone being assassinated once. Yeah. Well, not in a fantasy game. No, you could be
Ah,
raised, resurrected, healed. I mean, there's plenty of. You could give your life for your friends over and over and over again. Yeah.
what a miserable character class. Oh boy.
Uh, well, this was great. I'm glad for joining me on this one. I'm glad you picked those ones to pick up and review with me here. We dragged this out to almost 2 hours on this. They've listened to us blather on about goofy stuff in first edition Dungeons and Dragons. Um, Maybe I'll look one day at some of those other goofy classes in the first early Dragon magazines because some of those look like to be a lot of fun. That Jester was hilarious. That's why I picked it because he matched with the other
Yeah.
dresser that was there. You know, we can look at the Village Idiot class too and give that one a good review. Some silly stuff, but it was great.
Yes.
Made some fun stuff. Yeah, really interesting set of alternate classes. Yeah, I mean, I picked the ones in there because I liked them and I thought they were unique and a little bit different and added something more to the game other than just a tweak on this particular character. The only difference of that was the monk, and the monk was made some significant differences. So so we'll look at some more of these maybe next week. I'm not going to be around next week. I've got family vacation kind of thing planned. So you'll have to entertain yourselves by reviewing some of the other videos or going back and look at some of the stuff that I've already done. If you haven't already looked at it, I need to get back to making just videos and posting videos in there other than just these live streams. I've got some good plans on things like heraldry. I wanted to do another one on saving throws and that kind of thing, but I'll get around to doing that kind of stuff. Let's see, what do we got here? I think we're pretty much all set to go. I don't see any extra comments in there about what we were talking about. So I'll go ahead and let you go there, Dooms, and we will catch up with you later. Hey, well, thanks again for joining us here on the Great Old Ones channel, looking at first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons one more time, talking about Dragon Magazine classes. There's plenty more out there that we can look again. Please, if you enjoyed this little video that we put together, um, like and subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications, go to Doomsword's channel and do the same for his channel. All right, give us show us some of that love there for this game, and we'll keep doing this stuff because you guys like it and we love it. We'll do it anyway. But we'll keep at it. So much appreciated. Thanks, and I will go ahead and call this a day. Thanks for joining us. See you all next time.